What's good, y'all? Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. This is DNVR Rams Live. I'm Justin Michael. We've got Andre Simone back. He was on vacation, exploring overseas.
Yeah,
much
not
more
like
cultured.
you in Vegas, you know.
Yeah, but like you're doing
Different kind of culture.
Yeah, well, you could phrase it that way. That's one way to put it. It was an experience. It was a blast. Obviously, thankful to our good friends at Circa. They do it right with media days. I still have more content actually that's going to come from that as well. I've been working on some written features, some position previews. Really intriguing stuff happening with the program this year. Obviously, it's a very big season for CSU football. They bring a lot of talent back, but there's also a lot of pressure to win. I mean, with the way that the schedule is lined up, with the way that you do have continuity within the staff and the roster, there's going to be an expectation for this team to kind of break through and get over the hump, which is something that they have not been able to do in recent years. We're going to kind of talk about that this year and whether we can see a leap from Tory Horton, from Braden Fowler-Nicolosi, in 2024. Similarly to the way we saw a leap from the duo of Garrett, Grayson, and Rashard Higgins 10 years ago. We're going to talk about those guys going into the Hall of Fame together and how fitting it is. First things first, though, Shaq Barrett and Michael Gallup each announcing their retirement within a couple of days. We're losing a lot of CSU star power here in one kind of foul swoop. Shaq had originally signed a one-year deal with Miami, has decided he wants to walk away, spend more time with his family. They obviously had just a tragic situation a little over a year ago with the passing of their young daughter. So I don't blame him at all for wanting to spend more time with his boys, with his wife, and now they have an infant as well. We're going to talk about his career. Michael Gallup as well, calling it quits after 6 years with the Cowboys. He had signed with the Raiders, ultimately just decided his heart wasn't in it anymore. Again, another guy who's been through a lot. Injuries, unfortunately, derailed his career.
Yeah.
But I do want to start just kind of by talking about Shaq Barrett, because I think he's such a inspiring story. Like, he's a guy who, in another world, like, we just never even see him locally. I mean, the only reason he ended up at CSU in the first place was after a breakout freshman year at Nebraska Omaha, where he was from, or Baltimore originally lived in Nebraska, but they folded their program. So he ends up at CSU kind of out of the blue, gets to be immediately eligible, which was not a thing that was very common back then. Immediately leads the Rams in tackles his first year. Obviously, the 2013 season when he was Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year.
Spectacular stuff.
I mean, that's what really kind of established the legacy, the New Mexico Bowl, what he did there.
Yeah.
And then, he goes on and has a nice tenure with the Broncos. But what kind of comes to mind to you, I guess, when I bring up the name Shaq Barrett? Like, do you have any specific memories? Because I think a lot back to that, 2015 season, especially his rookie year in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, and then what he did in Tampa, right? Like, he really a key to those defenses. I mean, he's arguably the best player on a Super Bowl championship team that beat Mahomes and the Chiefs and had Tom Brady on it. I would argue in some ways that he's maybe the greatest Rams pro of all time. I think him and Joey Porter are a really fun discussion to have. Joey Porter probably more of a Steelers legend. But it's like, gosh, what Shaq did in his prime at the height of his career was just unbelievable. And then he's got that added juice of such a great story coming up. Mm-hmm. You've got the fact that he goes undrafted despite that incredible production, the way he was able to sharpen his body, which is why he goes undrafted. I will never, ever forget him telling people about how a big part of the change in his diet was that he went from putting sugar and maple syrup on his pasta and spaghetti. Of course, that sticks in my mind, having grown up in Italy. That seemed kind of crazy. And then fine tuning stuff. 2015, you mentioned that. That's some of the greatest defensive lines in Broncos history. And the depth that Shaq added to that group was incredible. Outplaying first-round talents like Shane Ray, to really take his career to the next level. He's one of the all-time greats. I will never forget, he beat up on DJ Fluker, right? Mm-hmm. In that Alabama game, and trolling Chargers fans early in my draft career that the undrafted guy the Broncos got absolutely dominated the 11th overall pick for the Chargers that year in the draft. He just brings me such good memories, such good feelings. Yeah, man.
It's weird. It feels weird that it's over, honestly. Like, it's definitely one of those moments that makes me feel old, just because I worked for the program, obviously, when he was still there, my first year on campus. To see everything that he did in his career was really cool. One of the genuinely good people in the game, too. I tweeted this story out, but look, it's a small thing. I've met a lot of famous people over the years, or, you know, it's not like I've met Prince or something like that, but plenty of pro athletes like over the years, and most of them, you know, they don't remember you, and that's fine. I would not expect them to. Shaq in 2019 on the sideline before the Rocky Mountain Showdown, I'm walking up to him. I start doing the whole spiel like, hey, you know, I'm Justin Michael, work for BSN, you know, companies. Oh yeah, I know you, follow you on Twitter. Like, you used to work for the team, knew exactly how I was, knew my name. And it was just one of those deals that it meant a lot to me, especially, you know, 5 years ago, early in my career. I'm still coming up. I'm really happy for the guy that he gets to go out on his own terms. One of the most clutch players I've ever seen as well, for a guy that's not playing a skill position. You know, you're rushing the passer, you're playing off-ball linebacker. For him to impact big wins the way that he did so consistently, whether it was at CSU and what he did, you know, with the back-to-back strips against Washington State, or even, you know, in a reserve role in 2015, he made like 6 starts that year. He had 4 forced fumbles. I remember in particular, he had a huge performance in a win over Cleveland, where like the Broncos were kind of on the ropes on the road. And he comes up with a couple of big strips exactly like he did against Wazoo and Albuquerque. And it's just cool. It's a guy that bet on himself. It's a guy that proved himself repeatedly and was still doubted. And then he said, you want to know what? Screw it. I'm going to go sign with the Buccaneers. And honestly, made the Broncos look really dumb. Like, the first season that they commit fully to him after having to deal with all the roster politics in Denver between Shane Ray and Bradley Chubb and all these first-round picks that they repeatedly gave opportunities to over him despite his consistent production. Like, it was just so validating for a guy that had always been in his corner to see him have, you know, like a 20-sack season, to do what he did, to win a second Super Bowl ring. I mean, he's got an incredible legacy, and I'm with you. I would say, outside of Joey Porter, who quietly is like almost a fringe Hall of Famer, he had 98 sacks in his career. I was surprised to see that when I looked it up this morning.
Hall of Famer. I mean, he's in that mix.
4-time All-Pro. Like, he had a lot of successful seasons, but it's him or Shaq, at least for the 21st century. Like, you want to go back to the 50s, somebody like Jack Christensen, he's in the NFL Hall of Fame. Like, I understand that, you know, Gary Glick was the number 1 overall pick at one point. Like, they've had guys that have done and accomplished some pretty remarkable things, but especially in modern day football, for him to kind of be the face of CSU and to produce the way that he did, it was great for the program. And it was at a time where there weren't a lot of Rams, you know, succeeding in the NFL. Like, you'd have Joel Dreesen was kind of the guy that carried that flag for a good half decade, and, you know, like Shelley Smith, some other people, and every now and then a Ram would get a cup of coffee in the league, maybe last a year or two on a team. But to do what Shaq did was different. It kind of kicked off this whole run here. Obviously, then Rashard goes and Garrett gets drafted. You get Richburg in the 2nd round. Crockett Gilmore goes way earlier than you think. Like, I kind of feel like Shaq doing what he did at the next level validated CSU as a program in a way that it was like, this is a program that produces NFL talent. You can go there. You can maybe find a little bit under the radar talent and guys that are going to produce above, you know, their draft status, or in his case, being an undrafted free agent.
It's a great point. He kind of opened that door. There's a bit of a dividing line, a pre-Shaq Barrett and a post-Shaq Barrett life for the program and how it was seen from NFL evaluators. And you're right, man. It makes me feel old, too, because he's really the last guy from those great McElwain teams.
Yeah.
To call it a career, you know. And I mean, you mentioned a lot of them. Crockett, I'll never forget Tyson Brilo. He was one of the nicest guys I've ever met as well. Shaq's part of those teams. I mean, they had some great backfields. And that's like the last times you really felt
it's kind of bittersweet. Like, one of those like, it feels removed
seasons,
from it now.
Right?
Like, it's kind of one of those situations where I look at it fondly from what Shaq was able to accomplish. And I'm so thankful that we got to watch it. But also, like, specifically from a CSU standpoint, it's frustrating because you think back, man, it's already been a decade since that year. And you've had talent. Man. You've sent guys to the league. We're going to talk about another one of them here in a second, and Michael Gallup. But, man, like, that window closes quickly, and all of a sudden, that momentum cools, and it's just, I don't want to get too repetitive in terms of why this year is so important for CSU and how the schedule lines up and everything, because I feel like I've already done that rant 45 times.
Reminder.
But I mean, the clock is ticking, and the time to win is definitely now. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk Michael Gallup here in just a second as well. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat. Good morning to the homie Taylor. Appreciate you being on with us. Shout out to Carrie as well. She says the strip sack in the New Mexico Bowl is always the thing that I think about. Yeah, I mean, that it's about as individually impressive as anything I've ever seen, where with just a guy simply refusing to lose. I'm a strip Connor Halliday. They review it. They go back and say he's down. Fine, I'll just strip the running back the very next play. Unreal. One of the most fun games I've ever seen. That's why it cracked our top 25 recently with the DNVR best games in Denver or Colorado sports history, I guess I should say. Real quick, let's shout out the homies over at Lucy. Up your nicotine routine with Lucy, 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco free. What's great about Lucy is it's a really smooth process. They've got great flavor. You put it in, it's a nice smooth buzz throughout. Some nicotine products, you get it, it's going to immediately make you feel nauseous. Other ones, the flavor, it's maybe great at first, and then within 10 to 15 seconds, it's like a nasty piece of tasteless gum that you got to spit out. Not Lucy. You pop it in, you're good for at least 20 minutes. I mean, it's really solid. Apple ice is my favorite. Mango is really good. Can't go wrong with just like a classic mint or espresso. They've got it all. I personally, I'm a 4 milligram guy. I like that they have the 4. A lot of other places, they don't have the 4. 2 maybe not enough. 6 a little bit too much. 4 is kind of that sweet spot. Check out Lucy and make sure that you use our code. Level up that nicotine routine with lucy.co/rams. Again, lucy.co/rams. Get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. One more time, use that code RAMS to get 20% off. Here comes that fine print, though. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age. Every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. I also want to shout out Toyota. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR, a proud partner of CSU Athletics, and they're changing the game, guys. Toyota's got something for everybody for generations. Trucks have been a part of that perfect Colorado DNA, whether you're conquering the off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world. There's a truck that's just right for you, like the 2024 Tacoma, or maybe it's the 2024 Land Cruiser. They've got 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck, not to be outdone. Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trails, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Dre knows more than anybody. I mean, with air traffic being such a disaster these days, never been a better time to just get in the Toyota and drive to wherever you need to go.
Yeah.
Toyota, a proud partner of CSU Athletics, the official vehicle of DNVR.
Yeah, my European rental, not good. Wish it was a Toyota, no doubt.
Get it together, Italy.
Get it together for realsies, Italy.
How are you going to conquer off-road trails and smooth city rides in a Toyota? That's how.
So true.
Let's talk about Michael Gallup. He calls it a career after 6 years with the Cowboys, 3rd-round pick.
This one really surprised me as I'm kind of
I mean, he's walking away with some miles still left on the tires, I think. Definitely has had multiple ACL injuries, which is really tough. I mean, the mental process of that is brutal, and I don't want to speak for him, but just kind of from what I've heard behind the scenes, I think it really hurt him that Dallas didn't bring him back. He was really tight with Dak Prescott. Him and CeeDee Lamb are boys. Like, CeeDee Lamb posted 4 or 5 pictures on his Instagram story, shouting him out, hyping him up. They had been, kind of like a trio, this core of that roster that had been together for a half decade, and
Dak's contracts made it hard for the rest of those guys to get paid.
He's a victim of, and CeeDee Lamb might not be in Dallas much longer either, so we'll see what happens there. But when healthy, this guy is as physically gifted as any receiver I've seen. I mean, specifically at CSU, what he did in that 2016 season, 2017 was unreal. I think back to that 2017 game against Jay Norvell's Nevada squad specifically. It was a shootout under the lights. I mean, outside of the Oregon State game that year, that's probably my favorite memory in Canvas, which is saying something. There have not been enough of those, unfortunately.
Yeah, for real.
But I mean, he's a guy that I think he had a lot to prove being a third-round pick the way that he was, and I think there were, some folks that kind of looked at it like, really, and that was after kind of Rashard had been, I think it was a 6th-round pick, it might have been a late 5th round, and I thought he should have gone higher.
Yep.
Again, going back to like Shaq and Rashard kind of validating CSU in a way, I think it helped guys later on down the line, like Michael Gallup, get the respect that they deserved. This dude's catch radius, absurd, just built like a cartoon when you look at him, just nothing but muscle. I mean, it really was absurd. One of the most gracious and humble dudes I've been around. But, I mean, the dude was a freak. He was a freak playmaker.
100%. I remember seeing him at the Senior Bowl. He was the first CSU Pro Day I missed because my daughter was born that week. But I'd already seen all the work all the work he'd put in Mobile really stood out above the rest in that. And I mean, a guy who was able to exceed the hype coming into the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he was a big part of those Cowboys runs for a couple of years there, had some really big catches and tight games for Dallas. It was fun getting to see a Ram play for the Cowboys. I mean, we all love to crack the jokes and make the Dallas failing jokes. It's fun to make fun of the Cowboys. I'm sorry if you're a Cowboys fan. It is fun.
Not at all, sorry.
But like, they are one of the biggest brands in all of sports, not just in this country, but globally. They're on seemingly Sunday Night Football every freaking week. Like, it was nice to be able to tune in, and at times I'd get annoyed with all these NFC East matchups. I'd have a reason to be like, all right, I'm going to lock into this Cowboy game. I'm going to watch Mike do his thing. We're going to see him, maybe Moss a Giants DB or two. And
right.
Again, like, just kind of going back to visibility, it's good for the CSU football brand to have guys go on to the next level and to live up to their potential. That's how you continue to get guys drafted. It's how, how these NFL scouts and GMs will continue to respect your program and continue to go back to that well as if it proves to be fruitful. And fortunately, guys like Gallup and Higgins obviously didn't have quite the NFL career that I anticipated. There's a lot of reasons why I think quarterbacks, the lack of continuity within the staff, draft politics. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I think that kind of played into that. But it was good to see these guys go on and do what we knew they were capable of.
Yeah, no, Gallup far exceeded,
if not more.
And as far as the skill position guys, right? He's the one guy who really stood out once he made that jump to the pros. That's an important distinction.
Like, CSU had offensive linemen. Obviously, Joey Porter did his thing. Clark Higgins as well, another guy we should throw out if we're talking about the most successful pros. But it's tough at the skill position. It's one thing when you're in the Mountain West, and I love the Mountain West. They're NFL players, but you're not necessarily being covered by NFL corners week in, week out. That gap in athleticism and skill can really be evident in some of those types of games. And to his credit, he made the most of it, but he goes on and proves that it's going to translate in the NFL as well. Wish him nothing but the best. I mean, he's, again, you want to talk about a unique individual. I mean, he's adopted. He was a guy who should have gone to a much bigger school, gets hurt late in his high school career, ends up having to go to Butler Junior College, ends up at CSU because of his relationship with Bobo. Because they had started recruiting him back when he was at Georgia. It obviously all ends up working out in the end, and I'm really happy that he lived up to what I knew he could be. And if you want to talk pound for pound, talent for talent, he's on my Mount Rushmore of the all-time great CSU wide receivers, and that's what I want to talk about with you next. You guys can debate the order all you want, but I think right now there's 4 guys definitively that make this list. I'm going to throw them out and we can talk about them a little bit. Rashard Higgins, 239 catches for 3,649 yards, 31 touchdowns in his career. Tory Horton, these are just his CSU stats, by the way, had another basically 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns at Nevada, but he has 167 catches for 2,267 yards, 16 touchdowns. Tory within earshot of the Mountain West all-time receptions record. We'll keep an eye on that. That's 239. Michael Gallup had 176 catches for 2,685 yards, 21 touchdowns, top 5 in only 2 seasons. He's top 5 all-time in total receptions, yards. He's tied for second in touchdowns. And my 4th and final member of CSU Mount Rushmore, wide receiver U, is David Anderson. 223 catches, 3,634 yards, 20 touchdowns. there have been guys that have been bigger, more explosive. You can throw out Warren Jackson. You can throw out a Preston Williams, who obviously was as impressive in his 1 year as any talent I've ever seen. But, man, if you're younger and you didn't watch DA back in the day, he put up these type of numbers in an offense that wasn't throwing the football 60 times a game. They'd had BVP at quarterback. He's running the ball.
Yep.
We're running it with Cecil the Diesel. And he had 223 catches, 3,634 yards, 20 touchdowns. Until Rashard Higgins broke his records, he was the Mountain West all-time leader in catches and receiving yards. There is a possibility that by the end of this year, number 1, 2, and 3 all-time in Mountain West receiving yards would be Rashard Higgins, Tory Horton, and David Anderson, 3 CSU Rams.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And the kind of stats you need to back up the reputation as wide receiver, certainly in the Mountain West Conference. It's crazy where Tory is. Like that, with a year to go, he's already
you look at
this kind of
239 catches over the last 4 years, 3,262 yards, 26 touchdowns. That's including Nevada. That's
wild.
That's absurd.
Just wild. And then, looking back on Hollywood's stats, it's just incredible what he was doing in that stretch. And as you were talking about with DA, I'm assuming if you go career wins, which we just talked individual stats, DA would be the leader on these 4 you have in your Mount Rushmore. That certainly needs to be thrown in there. And then he's got, some Trey McBride type juice where it's like, how was he this good in that kind of a run-first offense, It's a hell of a list, man. It's a hell of a list, and it's really exciting and fun that you already have the next one in, not just in the pipeline, but in the Mount Rushmore discussion and potentially in the discussion to be the Rams' GOAT wide receiver.
We'll have to see what he does statistically this year, but I'll say this, talent-wise, to me, he's kind of a hybrid of Michael Gallup and Rashard Higgins, and he's as good as any football player I've ever been around. And I've been around some pretty good ones between Shaq Barrett, Mo Camara, Trey McBride, and some of these dudes. He's just unreal. Joey B says, 7 wins or bust, Snoop Dogg, Arizona Bowl. Let's freaking go. The Arizona Bowl would be kind of cool. They get NIL money for it now. I would not be opposed to potentially meeting Snoop Dogg. I assume he would be there. Joey B says, if CSU football makes the bowl game, will Andre and Justin shotgun one of those silver bullets? Yeah,
that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, we can do that. If they have some big rivalry wins this year, might do some celebration. Honestly, it's been a while. We've been through it. We're due. The Rams are due to have that breakthrough. This offense is due to make a big leap, and that's kind of what I want to segue into. We've been talking about a fun time in that McElwain era. If you think back to 2013, it was kind of up and down. They had these good moments. You hang with Alabama. You also have some frustrating losses, like they lose to San Jose State at home. Really frustrating way. They lose to CU in a tight game, but they finish strong. They go into 2014. You beat CU in the opener. They had to go to Boise State week 2, which was brutal. Jay Ajayi just ran all over them. End up losing that by 2 touchdowns. But after that, you win 9 straight to go 10-2 in the regular season. Rashard, Garrett, they were about as unstoppable as any duo that I can remember. And it feels very fitting that Garrett Grayson and Rashard Higgins are going into the Hall of Fame together.
No kidding.
I was looking at Rashard Higgins and Grayson, just some of their game logs and stuff. And it's funny because Higgins in that 2014 season, he did have a touchdown in the win over CU, but he only had 1 catch for 16 yards in that week 1 game. Very quiet. From there, though, these numbers are just absurd.
Yeah.
They lose at Boise, but 11 catches for 143, 7 for 147 and a couple of tutties, 9 for 98 and a touchdown, 6 for 178 with 4 touchdowns against Tulsa. That's a school record. Follows that up 10 for 194 and 2 more touchdowns, 10 for 187, 5 for 174, 8 for 143, 10 for 167, 12 for 193 with 5 touchdowns over those 3 weeks. And then he finishes with 7 for 110 against Utah. Those are video game numbers.
No, they sure are. There's a reason his nickname was Hollywood. It was must-watch TV. It was get your popcorn ready time, anytime. Rashard was going on the field
that story?
that week.
So, like, when Rashard got to campus, he had the nickname Hollywood already from high school, and he had the Hollywood star, like, tatted on his back. True freshman, like, goes into campus, you know, they're all, like, introducing himself. I'm Wood. Like, I'm Hollywood. Like, never doubted himself for a second.
He played like it, man. He played like it. And not the most physically imposing, but just such a technician.
Oh, his routes were incredible. His hands were so smooth. I mean, his ability to create yards after the catch, he was really, really elusive. Definitely, like, he's got some wiggle. He had plenty of wiggle.
100%.
But yeah, like, it's not like he was Devontae Adams out there, you know?
No, not at all.
Even Gallup, you know, was like all muscle. He was a skinnier guy.
Yeah, and he wasn't a speedster like other guys, but
he
he
doesn't
was
have
just
4.4 speed like Tory.
A technician. And he was the perfect wide receiver for Grayson. He was the perfect wide receiver for that McElwain offense. It was just all so, like, timing and accuracy based, and he was just, like, open at all times. It was
and it was the benefit of playing
season.
a lot of football together, and it is something that we kind of lose sometime in this portal era where you're rebuilding year by year.
Of course.
You're not able to kind of have that continuity and build off of it. BFN, Tory Horton, they have now played a lot of football together, and obviously what both of those guys did last year was impressive, and I'm going to throw out some numbers from BFN, compare them to Grayson in 2013, very similar. If they could make that leap in 2014 similarly to the way that the team did 10 years ago, to me, like, that's the difference between being like a 6-7 win team, because I do think they're going to go to a bowl just with the way that the schedule plays out, but that's the difference between, like, being a 6-7 win team or maybe being like an 8-9 plus win team, winning some rivalry games, competing potentially for a Mountain West championship. They need those guys to kind of take it to the next level. We're going to talk about all that. I do want to shout out the Circus Sportsbook. And if you believe that CSU is going to make a little bit of noise this year, maybe bet on the Rams via the Circus Sportsbook. The app is available for download in the state of Colorado. They strive to give you some of the best odds around. Other places you might be getting more like -115, -20. Not with Circa. They're going to hit you with those -110 splits. They're highly transparent. They don't limit your winnings like other books. Other places, as soon as you start having success, they're like, nah, this guy, we're going to cap that off. Circa, everybody has the same opportunity to win big. The same great people that run the Circa Resort and Casino run the app. You can download it at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or just visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. As you can see in front of us, got a nice little set here, a couple of silver bullets. Coors Light, they encourage you to choose the chill mindset. College football can be frustrating. It can make you crazy, as can moving.
So true.
It's important that we keep our cool. It's important, do your breathing exercises. Go out in the sunshine a little bit. The people that rented my new place before me did a terrible job taking care of the yard. I've been putting in the work behind the scenes trying to make it look better. I'm going full old man, by the way, when it comes to yard. I'm going to talk about it a lot.
Oh, boy.
But you get that sun, you feel good, and then you want to know there's nothing better than cracking open an ice cold Coors Light after you've earned it. After you put in a little bit of work, you got some dirt under your fingernails, you put yourself in the right mindset, and then you choose to chill with an ice cold Coors Light. When those mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Make the most out of the time you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right. Before the ad, we were kind of talking about 2014 and how CSU football, they took it to the next level, both with the way that offense executed, with the way that the chemistry between Grayson and duo. I mean, you mentioned they were just the perfect duo. They were in sync. Obviously, as a team, you take it to the next level. You win a massive game against CU in Denver. From there, you go on the road and beat Boston College. You sell out your first game in over 15 years, and you win that one in dramatic fashion against Utah State on homecoming. The students storm the field. Like, you had all these special moments. But the root of that success, along with having a great offensive line, and I think that'll be a big key for the Rams this year, is they'll have a solid O-line, was what you were able to get out of Grayson and Higgins. You knew week after week those guys were going to be able to produce. And what was interesting to me is when I looked at Grayson's number in 2013, completed 62% of his passes, 3,696 yards, 23 touchdowns, 11 picks. BFN last year also completed 62% of his passes, 3,654 yards. So within 40 yards of each other, 22 touchdowns within 1 touchdown of each other. BFN obviously had 16 interceptions, too many.
Yeah, not that.
He also didn't have Capri Bibbs in the backfield the way that Garrett did in 2013.
Yeah, for sure.
In 2014, Garrett, he takes it to a new level. I mean, completes 64% of his passes, over 4,000 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. More so than the stats, though, it was the situations. It was the mastery of the offense. It was, I know exactly where I'm going when it's third and long. I know where I'm going when it's third and short. I know what we're doing here in this red zone. Like, he was always in total command, and a lot of that has to do with experience.
Yeah.
You would hope that now going into Braden's second year as the starter with a full offseason for the first time, getting to run with the ones in spring and fall camp, none of which he got to do last year, at least not consistently.
Right.
That's a lot of time for these guys to work together within this system, to spend time with, you know, your quarterback coach and your head coach. And again, like 8 first-year coaches in the Mountain West, simply having your same coaches around, that's a big advantage. Having your stars with you, that's a big advantage. Having continuity within your offensive line, the same center finally. Like, there's so many things in place where you could see, like, it's all there. Can they just take it by the reins and do it? And that's what I'm really interested to see, because I think talent-wise, like, you could put this group with that 2014 team. I don't think that's like an absurd comparison to say that BFN and Tory could be Garrett and Rashard. I mean, they are CSU Hall of Famers, so that's putting pretty lofty hopes on them. But I mean, just pure talent-wise.
No, for sure. Now it's, you know, can the backfield be at that level? Can the tight end room be at that level? How close can this O-line be to that O-line? But no, you're right. And that was what? That would have been Grayson's 4th year in that offense, and this is BFN's 3rd year in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, like, 3rd year with actually playing. But yeah, 4th year in the program.
Yeah, so, I mean, that continuity will go a long way. It's also, I think, Grayson's stats in some ways a little more impressive because that was more of a pro-style offense. That was more of a balance. And that balance will help BFN a lot, too. You know,
well, and that's the thing. You hope that I don't want it to be like last year where they have to throw it 60 times a game for them to have a chance to be competitive. Like, you need some games where it's like, you want to know what happened today? Kobe Johnson went for 140 and Braden only had to throw it 30 times.
Also, like, a winning setting is one where games are tied or you're nursing a lead and you're not having to throw the ball every 4th quarter to come
the
from
way
behind.
They did last year.
I think they're a really interesting comparison because the systems they are in are quite different, makes the face-to-face comps a little harder. Yeah. But where they succeed is in similar ways, right? They're underrated athletes. Grayson was an insane athlete. I remember going to his individual pro day where, like, shirtless, he ran almost a 4.5.
That's the thing. Like, and Garrett was kind of a dual threat before he got banged up, like as a sophomore, and then they were like, all right, like, let's stay in the pocket a little bit.
But I feel like Braden's got some real athleticism.
He does. He can move.
But I've talked about how I think he needs to get better throwing on the run. I think he needs to get better making those decisions and knowing when to just cut it and improvise and rely on his legs. Where BFN has really succeeded is dead to rights. Everyone in the stadium knows you need to stand tough in the pocket and make that 3rd and 8 throw. Boy, he's coming through way more often than a first-year starter
on his touch
any business coming
on some
through.
Of those key situations, whether you look at the throw he made in Middle Tennessee State to Tory Horton in the corner of the end zone. I mean, the throw to Tory to set up the Holy Hulker. The Holy Hulker is a great throw, but the throw to Tory is actually a much more challenging play. Drops it right in between the DB and the safety, hits him in stride, allows him to get down so he can still get that snap off. Like,
the entire 4th quarter against Boise is just
insane. I mean, you don't see that from kids like, and he has
super gutsy, man.
He has an energy to him in a way that Garrett did that the rest of the team buys into. So, like, Garrett, very similarly, early on in his career, he had to win a QB battle. I think that was Connor Johnson back in the day, kid out of Texas. There's been so many quarterbacks over the years now, but you know, like, Garrett had this energy and the rest of the locker room bought into that. BFN, he has a swagger. And I even talked about that after they lost in Boulder, and, you know, like, he has an interception late in double overtime because it's 4th down and they're trying to force it. But, like, you could just tell that he had an energy, and I don't mean this as a diss at Clay, but he just had an energy and a belief that Clay didn't. Guys buy into that, like especially at that position.
Yeah, and it's not just Clay. I think you could go down the list of guys who've started for CSU behind center, and I mean, yeah, he stands out above the rest, and it's that. I mean, he can make those big time throws when everyone knows he has to, and from the intermediate on, he really stands out for his accuracy and ability to deliver the ball on time with plenty of zip, plenty of RPMs on the ball, and like just hit you fully in stride on a frozen rope. It's all the other elements to his game I want to see round out. I want to see him get more comfortable. And if he can do that, sky's the limit here.
And honestly, like I definitely want him to cut down the turnovers. 16 is far too many. And part of that is like you had a couple of games where you throw 2 or 3 and it adds up, kind of racks up the stats. But I love his aggressiveness. I love that confidence. 100%. I don't need a 3 interception season. I can live with 1 a game. If you cut it by 25%, you go from 16 to 12, but you throw more touchdowns, you're moving the ball, and it's no, like I don't want to throw an interception every game, but again, like not every interception is judged the same. Like sometimes interceptions happen because you made the right throw and the defender makes a great play. So like I don't want him to lose sight of what makes him special, that same gunslinger mentality that makes him capable of doing incredible things in the fourth quarter that other guys aren't. Like that's the same mindset that can at times get him into trouble, and he's got to rein it in a little bit. But the arm talent, the ability to run the offense, the belief of the team, like that's all there. You just got to go out and do it now. And like 100%. That's what's scary as a CSU guy is that historically when you have every reason to believe in the Rams, that's when they break our heart the most. They find a way to not achieve what they could have, and it's been a pretty common theme over the last 20 years. That said, like it only takes one, and it takes that 1 year a breakthrough, and you can just, if you can get a couple of big wins, if you can get back in a bowl game, if you can have Braden have the all conference type season, have Tory be the Mountain West offensive player of the year, or at least like in the running, be a first or second round pick. I can see it so clearly where like this becomes the springboard season, and then all of a sudden like you're rolling, you're recruiting well right now. You have better depth within your program than you've had in recent years. When you start winning, you don't have to worry as much about guys like, Lewis Brown and Justice Ross Simmons leaving, and wish those guys the best. I don't really care. We're over it. But like that's what's tough is, last year if you win a couple more of those games, you go 7-5, you go to a bowl, maybe you don't hang on to all of them. But maybe you don't lose all of Justice Ross Simmons, Lewis Brown, Grady Kelly, TJ Crandall. Like maybe a couple of those guys hang around. Maybe a couple of them just move on anyways. Yeah. But
some of it to me might just be economics. And I think more so than losing those guys, the priority was keeping BFN and Tory Horton.
You did that.
Which is massive, 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 massive. I don't think we'll ever know truly the economic implications and other bids that were out there for those guys' talents. But from just the talks around college football of what starting quarterbacks cost, and I mean, just a talent like Tory Horton, who's in the mix to be a preseason All-American, it's significant sums of money. It's 6 figures.
Yeah.
But you've talked about expectations and not living up to those in years past. I think the expectations this time around are a bit different, at least from the last 5 years. I don't want to go too far back, and it's because of BFN and Horton. It's because of that connection. And again, you're talking about the turnovers, the interceptions specifically. Those are all part of a context of the inexperience he's playing with.
No run game.
I mean, and look, man, if you're coming from behind every game, that's a really tough spot.
It's a tough place to make a living.
And a lot of guys, those are sink or swim moments. Most guys are going to sink. That's just the reality of it. You're an inexperienced quarterback put in that type of situation where you're the guy, you're the one who has to drop back 30 plus times every game because that's the only way we're sticking in this game. That's the only way we're coming back. And he actually, without much practice, without much playing time ahead, came through the fire and looked really good, was one of the bright spots of that season. If you can build on that, on top of the confidence we have in Coach Norvell's offense and his track record of developing guys on the offensive side of the ball. Everything aligns for this to be a different year, and I don't think we're just blowing smoke. I think we're merely talking about, like, we're just being realists, right?
It's within the realm of possibility in a very realistic way, in which it just has not been in the past.
And this is college football preseason projections, right? You go from, I mean, look at all the preseason All-American lists. Most of those guys are guys we're more dreaming on, but that's what it is, right? You're not a star until you have that breakout season, and then everyone in the country knows your name. Everyone's like betting on you for the bowl game or for awards or for Mount West preseason awards, what have you. It's a fun comp. He needs to tap in to some of those Grayson-like qualities with finding his spots to run the ball, being a little more accurate on the short to intermediate.
And you got to win. Like, honestly, what it ultimately comes down to, why Garrett and Rashard are revered in a way that very few are, is those guys won big games. You know, they beat the Buffs multiple times. They went into Boston College and beat those guys on the road. And, if you could have a big win early on in the season, that would certainly help the cause. And I've had people in the Toyota chat asking me, expectation, should it be 6 wins, 7 wins? I think you've got to win at least 6. I want more than that, but I think there's more qualifiers inside of that. Like, you have to win a rivalry game this year. You have to win a trophy game at home for this season to feel successful. And if you can do that, I think it gives you an opportunity to springboard in a major way. I had Joey B asking me what I think it's going to be like attendance-wise. There's going to be some Buffs fans in attendance, just like there were some CSU fans in attendance last year. It will be the majority CSU. I don't care what the trolls say online. There's only 37,000 seats in the stadium. It's going to be over 12,000 ticket holders alone. On top of that, they had an opportunity to purchase extra tickets. For instance, my brother, he's a season ticket holder. They've got 3 season tickets. They bought, I think, 3 or 4 on top of that. So would some of those tickets end up on the resale market, end up in Buffs fans? Without a doubt. But the vast majority of them are going to be CSU. And it's a numbers thing. Your student tickets, CSU season tickets alone, that's going to be 25,000 plus. Could you end up with an instance where the majority of the remaining 10,000 end up in the Buffs? Potentially. We'll see. I still think it'll be mostly green. I heard the same thing about the basketball game last year. Oh, you're going to take over. There's so much more. Wasn't even close to that. It was 98% CSU fans. Buffs fans didn't take over in 96 when it came. They were a top 10 team back then too. A lot of people, they comment on this stuff. They don't have any idea of the history. They don't have any understanding of the rivalry. The last thing I'll say, and I got asked in the Toyota chat, I got asked my thoughts on McChesney's rant about CSU and about Jay Norvell. Look, guys, he's a CU alum. He played for the Buffs. He's going to be very passionate in their favor. Did I think that it was very WWE-esque? I did. I also think it's very entertaining. I think it's good for the rivalry that people are going back and forth. Like, he's going to be pro Buffs. He's going to hate Jay Norvell. I'm going to be pro CSU. I'm going to make jokes about, the Sanders and Travis Hunter and all that. Like, that's how this goes. It's all part of the rivalry. It's all in good fun. We don't have to take ourselves that seriously. But it's certainly going to be interesting how this all plays out within the local media and all that, because I think it's definitely going to be a circus come September. We'll say that. If even media days was any indicator of what that process is going to be like, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, man, it's great to have you back.
Great to be back. Going to be a great season. Cannot wait for college football. Less than a month now, J-Mike. Less than a month. Can you believe it?
Oh, shoot, dude. We're like a couple weeks from, I'm going to be full on in camp. I'm going to be at practice every day. Like,
incredible.
I miss it. I miss the sounds. I miss the smells. Like, I know that's weird, but there's like this weird, distinct football smell that's like part grass, part turf, part sweat and nastiness and like Gatorade, but it's a very comforting feeling to me because I've been around it so much over the last decade. Yeah. Football is in the air. I cannot wait for this season. We're going to have all kinds of fun content, more live shows, more practice coverage, more video content. We're going bigger and better than ever before.
Love it.
So much love to everybody in the Toyota chat. So much love to everybody listening on the audio only side down the line. You guys make
Leave
all
us
of
a
this
like on the way
possible.
out, please.
If you can hit us with a thumbs up on YouTube, I certainly would appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, send it to your friends. Send it to your mama. Send it to whoever. I'm sure they would love to hear the good word about the Rams.
Damn straight.
Always proud to be y'all. Much love. Peace.
Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.